On February 1, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 25% tariff on Canadian products, citing Canada's failure to curb the smuggling of Chinese fentanyl into the U.S. However, just 2 days later, Trump declared a 30-day delay in implementing the tariffs to observe whether Canada could take effective measures to improve border control. This erratic move has not only complicated Canada's economic and political situation, but has also further exposed the hegemonic tendencies of U.S. global economic governance. In this video, we will analyze Canada's current predicament, response strategies, immediate and long-term risks, and the credibility of the U.S. as an ally. Canada's economy is highly dependent on the U.S. In 2023, exports to the U.S. accounted for 75% of Canada's total exports, with key products including energy, lumber, automobiles, and agricultural goods. This heavy reliance leaves Canada with little room for maneuver when U.S. trade policies shift. In 2018, Trump's administration imposed tariffs of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum, citing national security concerns, causing significant damage to Canadian industries. Now, using border control issues as an excuse to impose new tariffs, the vulnerability of Canada's economic structure is once again exposed. Canada has often aligned itself too closely with U.S. foreign policy, as seen in the 2018 Huawei incident. At the request of the U.S., Canada arrested Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou, only to face economic retaliation and diplomatic isolation from China, while the U.S. later reached a trade agreement with China and suffered no real consequences. This case highlights Canada's lack of diplomatic independence, making it vulnerable to being used as a pawn while bearing the consequences alone. The Trump administration has consistently demonstrated a lack of trust in its allies. In 2020, the U.S. withdrew from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP. In 2022, it imposed trade barriers on European allies and even threatened to reduce NATO military aid. This sudden tariff imposition, followed by a delay, further illustrates the U.S.'s unilateral and self-serving approach to its allies. A clear pattern in Trump's foreign policy is appeasement toward authoritarian regimes while applying rigid pressure on allies. Trump's behavior suggests that Canada is seen as an expendable pawn in his policy framework, unable to count on stable allyship. Canada must accelerate trade diversification to reduce reliance on the U.S. This includes fully leveraging the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, with the EU and expanding trade within the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP. Additionally, strengthening domestic industrial and agricultural production can reduce Canada's reliance on U.S. imports and exports. Canada could limit the export of key resources to the U.S. For instance, increasing crude oil prices or reducing oil exports would have a significant impact on the U.S. energy market. Furthermore, developing domestic energy processing industries and expanding exports to China, India, and other markets could reduce dependency on the U.S. Investing in technology and manufacturing can help Canada grow its artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and biotech sectors, reducing dependence on U.S. markets. Tax incentives and branding strategies can also boost Canadian industry's competitiveness internationally. In the short term, Canadian businesses may see sharp declines in profits, while market uncertainty could shake investor confidence, especially in resource and export-driven industries. In the long run, deteriorating U.S.-Canada relations could lead to stricter trade sanctions, forcing Canada to reshape its global trade network and deepen partnerships with China, Europe, and Asia-Pacific nations. Trump's trade policies demonstrate that the U.S. is increasingly abandoning traditional alliances in favor of a unilateral, self-serving approach. Within just 2 days, Trump imposed tariffs and then delayed them, highlighting how his decisions are driven by political motives rather than rational economic planning. Canada must take this as a wake-up call to restructure its economy and reduce dependence on the U.S. for long-term national stability. By accelerating trade diversification, implementing strategic countermeasures, and strengthening domestic industries, Canada can shield itself from future U.S. trade disruptions. Trump's short-term pressure tactics may force Canada into concessions, but in the long run, America's hegemonic policies will ultimately backfire. Canada must prepare for these challenges by building a more independent, diversified economic and diplomatic framework, ensuring true economic sovereignty for the future.